90% of web, at least the meaning information of the web page, is typography. And that's why I decided to start this practical part of this module from Typography Style Guide. Later you can use it as part of your UI kit or design system, but we will cover today typography that will be used on absolutely any web page. Of course, the values can be different, but the main idea, you will get it and you will learn how to create your own typography style guide for absolutely any web page. Let's dive in. Previously, it was pretty simple to work with typography because you were designing just for desktop. But later, somewhere in like 2008 or even a little bit earlier, with mobile phones, we started talking about responsive web. What does it mean? It means that now you have to think what typography, what typeface size, what font size will look like on a mobile device. Before we had just static view, just desktop version. Of course, we had to keep in mind like different sizes of the screens, but usually the size is different, but still the size of the title, for example, will be the same across all the devices because the difference wasn't huge. But later when we started talking about tablets and later with mobile phones, everything has changed. And today, like, I don't know if you remember those days when you designed the adaptive version of the web page. What does it mean adaptive? Adaptive means that you designing the web page for the desktop version, then you design the version for the tablet, and then you design the version for the mobile phone. Like separate versions, 3 separate versions, and not only designing, but implementation is also separate. It means that, of course, you can get part of the information from the desktop for the tablet and mobile, but some specific things will be separate, like font sizes and everything. But later, we started working with responsive web. It means that when I open the page on desktop, I can shrink down the size, I can make the page narrower in the browser on my desktop, on my computer, and everything, the entire layout will change and will be responsive to, will respond to our size change of the screen. And this works with typography as well. So when you're changing, for example, you had a H1 that was pretty big on the desktop. On the mobile phone, if you want to get really good readability, you have to make it a little bit smaller. So how to do that, how to do it, how to work with that, let's talk about it, and let's create, by the way. I have, maybe you saw already on my website, I have the UX UI design case study template. And as you can see here, the title that I have here, the size of it is 60 pixels. While on the mobile version, it's 42. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when what we need to understand when we design something for web, that we have to keep in mind what the size will be, what the style of the typeface will be on the desktop version and what the style will be on the mobile version. And usually, you don't have to overwhelm yourself. Usually the idea is that we are changing just the size. And this is where we have to think about type scale. What is type scale? Type scale is when we have one size for, let's imagine, for the paragraph, and all other sizes on the web page will be related to the size of the, will be a scaled version of the size of the paragraph. This is the example of, so this is, let's imagine that this is just for an example, like a static version for this desktop web page. This is mobile version, but again, static, like we can think about it as an adaptive one. But today, when we're designing, we always keep in mind like what the behavior will be when we'll shrink down the size, how the page will react on that. Today, unfortunately, Figma doesn't have yet the variables. It doesn't have yet the option to change the size automatically, responsively for the typeface. I hope that it's still yet, probably, and I hope so, that in the future we'll see the version where you will be able to set for the size of the screen of the frame, like for the desktop size of the frame, we will have the size of the font, like let's imagine 80 points. For the mobile version, let's make it 40. And then when you shrink down the size, when you make the page narrower, like in this way, you will also see that the typeface, the font size is changing as well. I hope that we will see that in the future. Today we don't have it yet, but at the same time, maybe in the future we'll see exactly what's needed. But now let's get back to the type scale and how to use it. This is a type scale that I created for you to show you what we will be doing. So we have a desktop type scale, we have a tablet one, and we have a mobile. And you see we have different sizes here. For absolutely everything, we have different sizes. But they have to match semantically. What does it mean, the semantic match? It means that if we have heading of the first level, heading 1, on the desktop, and we have heading 1 on the mobile version, but they have different font sizes, semantically, they provide the same information to the system, that this is H1, this is heading 1. And before you create the type scale, before you create the web page, before you design the web page, I recommend you to think about what should be on the page, what the styles you're going to use on the web page. 100%, like you will use, let's make it a little bit smaller here and 100% maybe here. I'm pretty sure that you will be using something like, I'll make it smaller. You will use the size for paragraph. So there will be a paragraph. What else? Most likely you will have links, a link. Probably you will have buttons because it's a website. What else? Think about it. Think with me. What else? Maybe heading, right? Heading. But most likely the heading will be of a different style. So what you have to know about websites when it comes to web design, there are heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. These are the levels of hierarchy. Heading 4, heading 5, and heading 6. What exactly they are, how they work, the semantic version of them, and everything you can learn from the typography masters course. This course is not about explaining all these things. This course is about how to actually do these things. But the main idea is that the system should understand what is the most important here on this page. And the most important usually is defined by, okay, I don't want to overwhelm you. Let's simplify it. The most important, let's imagine that will be defined by the heading 1. So it provides the most important information on the page. Heading 2 is a less important information. Heading 3 is less important information, but it allows you to get the structure about the page. And when you understand like, okay, I will definitely use H1, I will definitely use H2 and H3, but the rest, honestly, on this page, I'm not going to use. So that's why you can remove them. Usually I create the style guide after the exploration stage. because once you finish the exploration stage, you understand, oh, okay, now I understand what exactly do I need. Typography, what colors do I need, what typefaces do I need, what sizes, how I will show the visual hierarchy through these font sizes and font styles, etc. But because we are talking about the practical part, and I hope that you already understand what is the semantic of typography, how it works, what is the exploration stage and everything, we will just do stuff here and do it the right way, do it the most efficient way. So that's why let's get back to our practical part here. So we have paragraph, we have link, we have button, we have headings. We can call them headings, but we'll have heading 1, heading 2. Let's imagine that we are developing, we are creating the system that we will be able to use for absolutely any project. Some of them will have just a couple of headings, some of them will have all of them, we'll use all of them. Now, what else can we have on the page from typography perspective? We have paragraphs, we have links, we have buttons, we have, by links I mean the links that will be used in the text and some of the links that will be, so basically text link and navigation as well. Buttons, headings, covered almost everything, right? But there are a couple of things that I recommend you to add. Eyebrow, also known as overline. I'll show you later what exactly it is, so you will understand exactly. The next thing that I also recommend you to have caption, and I also recommend you to have a footnote. These are the things that I recommend you to have on your web page. It doesn't mean that you have to use all of them, and it doesn't mean that this is the maximum that you can have. In addition to all of these things, you can also have the lead paragraph. If you came to web design from graphic design, for example, you can also have something like a particular style. I can't even imagine right now, but maybe you can have caption bold. What does it mean? It means that exactly the same as caption, but because we're creating the styles for absolutely every single piece, we'll create an additional caption that will have a little bit different style. Same size, same typeface, same everything like line height, letter spacing, but it will have the weight bold. Okay? I'll show you just in a second how we're gonna do that, because the ways how we can do that, how we can create the type scale for our web page, for our website, and how we can create the typography style guide for our website. There are two ways to do that: the manual one and automatic, with manual adjustments, manual edits. So how does it work? The manual one. First of all, let me do some changes here in terms of, like prioritization. Perfect. So we have all these items. So the manual one. We understand that we are building the visual hierarchy here, so people understand exactly where they are and what's happening. Let's imagine that we decided that all the typefaces that we're going to use will be regular, but headings will be bold. That's clear, right? You can make some adjustments for links and buttons. They will be medium, just to attract more attention. And the lead paragraph, by the way, let's bring it up. And the footnote will go the last one. And the lead paragraph will be also medium. This part is done. So now, the next part, I'm talking about manual method right now. The next part, you define the size of the web page of the each element on the web page. And the heading 1 is usually the biggest. So let's make it something like 80. The second one is heading 2. And for that, we will define something like 60. It's smaller than H1, but at the same time, bigger than anything else. The next one, H3, 48. This is just an example. I'll show you later how you can do it automatically. But I also want to show you the manual method so you can apply it whenever you want, and it will be much easier for you to work when you don't have the option, for example, to create the typography style guide using some other external tools like plugins or any web pages. Because there are some tools that allow you to check that, to create the type scale, but I want to show you that you can create it manually. It's not necessary that you will go and create it using type scales. Next thing, so 48, the next size will be 40, the next size will be 32, and 24 for our H6. Then it goes lead paragraph, that will be also 24. Then paragraph itself, the paragraph itself, we will go usually, the idea is that the size for the paragraph is usually from 16 to 24. This is just a regular norms. Usually it goes from 14 to 24. It depends on how much text you have, and it depends on how much you want people to read, to actually read this text. And the bigger the size is, the better readability, the better accessibility, but at the same time it takes more space. So you have to understand, like, you have to find the balance between all these things. So usually the idea that it goes from 16 to 20, this is like the optimal size. It's not so small as 14, but at the same time it's not so huge as 24. My recommendation is to use something like 16 or 18. For paragraph, we're using 18. You know what? Here we will use, for the lead paragraph, we'll use 22. The next thing, link and button are usually the same size as a paragraph. Why so? Just because the link that is used inside of the text goes with a paragraph, and you don't want the link to be different from the paragraph. So that's why you're using the same style for the link as a paragraph, but we remember that we're using medium one. For the button, you have to decide up front what style you're going to use for the buttons. If the button, there are, like, remember from the Figma Fundamentals module, the first module of this course, you remember how to create auto layout and all these things. So here, let's create the button, and I'll make it simple, you know, something like this and this. This is the button. And I want to make the size immediately smaller, something like 16. So it will match everything that we already created here. 18. Later I'll show you why we can use smaller size for the button. So we have button here, but the button can have different styles. You can go with uppercase. You can go with much bigger letter spacing for the button. And what else? You can go with just all small letters, but usually the size, the type of the button is, the most common types of the buttons are this: regular size, regular case, uppercase, and bigger letter spacing. we will go with these two things because they are the most common. Like 90% of the buttons that you will see will follow this particular rule. Now, when the button, as you can see, when we are using uppercase, the X height, also not going to explain to you what is X height. Check the typography master's course. The X height is, in this case, becomes the size of the case, of the uppercase. And that's why we are decreasing the size to create the balance in the typography. And in this case, as you can see, button doesn't look right. It looks too huge. So that's why we decrease the size so they can match together. In my opinion, we can go with 16 here. Perfect. So you decide what style you will use, uppercase or the regular case for the buttons, and then just go with this idea. For our purposes, I just showed you that you can have different options, but for our purposes, we will use the button of the regular size. So here we decided that it will be 18 exactly as a paragraph, but we decided that it will be medium, just to make it a little bit like bolder. And everything that we'll create in the future, we will follow the typography style guide that we'll create here. Maybe we will get back and we'll change something in our typography styles later once we start designing, and we will realize, like, you know what, it will be better if we will use bigger size here, smaller size here, bolder text. So we'll go back to styles and we will change that. The most important that we are creating the typography style guide, the first one that we are creating to optimize our process, to get efficiency, and to be able to use the styles in the future. But before the handoff, when we actually give our design to developers, when we give our typography style guide to developers so they can follow it, they will have the final version. And that's why don't focus too much on the final version from the very beginning for your typography style guide. You can change it. You can add styles. You can remove styles before the final version. It's okay to do that. But it's also really great if you can create the typography style guide from the very beginning, and then you will be able to use the same typography style guide for absolutely any project, any website that you're creating. Now let's get back to our typography style guide, the manual method. Eyebrow. What is an eyebrow? You probably saw it multiple times. Something like this, where you have heading, paragraph, and above everything there is an eyebrow. That explains what exactly, it's like a keyword for this particular section. In the Typography Masters course, I have a dedicated lesson that explains everything about overline, why it calls overline, why the name is eyebrow, what the style to choose for that, where people are using it. Like, you can check this out, check it out there. So eyebrow. For the eyebrow, we will use similar size as here, but again, because we're using uppercase, we can go with 16, but again, something like medium, because smaller size, we have to show it. And usually when we are creating the eyebrow, we're using, because it's just usually 1-2 words, we're using bigger letter spacing, and in this case I'll use 5%, but it can be 10%. It depends on the style that you're creating. So now you know what is overline and eyebrow, so that's why I'm taking this style and bring it here. Done. Then caption. What is caption? Caption, you can think about the caption as a body too. If you've ever designed mobile applications, you know that the styles for the mobile application, the typography style guide for the mobile application, not the mobile version of the website, but for the mobile application, is different. Mobile application don't have semantics, HTML semantics like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. They don't have it. No. Like every single style there, you define the semantic for the mobile application. It can be title, it can be title 1, title 2, title 3, display 1, display 2, headline 1, headline 2, then body 1, body 2, caption, call out, footnote. Like some of them will be similar, but you don't have to follow the HTML styles like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. No, they don't exist in mobile applications. But when it comes to sizes of the text, like paragraph, caption is a smaller size when you need to apply a smaller size for the paragraph. So instead of using paragraph, you're using a smaller size. So because of paragraph is 18, for the caption you can go with 14. For the caption bold, in this case we'll use semi-bold. We just call it bold. That is actually bolder. Also 14. And footnote, think about it as body 3, something like really small, like legal information, legal disclosure, where you have lots of like under the asterisk information that people usually don't read, but the company have to provide this information. So footnote. And because of the accessibility for the web, the smallest size that I recommend you to use is 12 for accessibility. Of course, you can go even lower than that, up to like down to 10. You can use it. It's totally fine. But just my recommendation to you, keep in mind accessibility. And for just accessibility purposes, usually on web, 12 is the smallest size that is used. Just keep it in mind. Okay, and now what do we have here? We have a typography style guide created manually. It's not style guide yet. This is just type scale with some additional. Type scale means that we have paragraph and we have the relationship between all like paragraph and all other elements. Okay? What makes a typography style guide a style guide rather than just a type scale? Actually, the creation of styles and ideally the description of where each of these styles is used and where we have to use it in a different way. When it comes to web, you should also understand that when you're creating these styles, it's not necessary that the size of the element should be exactly like that. What do I mean by that? Sometimes heading 1 can be the style of the eyebrow. How does that work? Let me show you. It will be heading 1, style eyebrow. Then you will have heading 2, which is how to create a typography style guide. I'll bring it down here so we have everything in one place. And then you have your paragraph, and after that, after everything, you'll have, let's imagine, button. Shift A, 32, 16, and stroke 40, 12 will be perfect. And here you have your button. The primary button, let's imagine, that will be of this style, and the secondary button. Primary, secondary. This is you define when you're creating components. So this is not part of like defining primary, secondary button. The typography will be the same for both. And here, again, because this is a more advanced version, this is a more advanced course, that's why I want to show you really important information, that heading 1 can have a style of the eyebrow, while semantically, for the browser, for the search engines, it will be defined that the most important here is heading 1. It's like web design nodes. The keyword is typography style guide. While it's H1, but this H1 has a style eyebrow. Usually how it works in HTML and CSS, it will go H1 class eyebrow. So when you're creating typography, if you're a web designer, web developer, or you're working closely with other developers, this is the idea that H1 by default has this style. Huge, bold typography, like, let's change. Huge, bold typography, really like that. But when you're designing something for your design purposes, you are using H1 style for the eyebrow, not this way. For the H1, for the heading of the first level, you're using the style of the eyebrow. So the next level here is H2. In HTML, it will be like this. You have H2. Let's make it just smaller. Where is our paragraph? I didn't copy it, I just brought it there. So we have our H2 here. H1 class eyebrow goes here. Then you have the paragraph itself. And then you have button. You see, like the HTML semantic hierarchy is still perfect. We have H1, we have H2, we have P, we have button. Perfect. But from the style perspective, we are using here for the H1 the style of the eyebrow. The only thing to keep in mind, never ever, and I'm saying it from my experience and from experience of that I got from one of the best SEO specialists that I've ever worked with, never ever use more than one H1 on your page. So if you're using even this style like that for the hero section, remember that what the hero section is, right? From the one of the first lessons of this module. While you can use this for the hero section, for all the next sections, this will not be the H1 class eyebrow. This will be P class eyebrow. Or you can use, instead of this style, you can define for the eyebrow that all the eyebrows that you will have actually will be H6. H6 will have the function of the eyebrow in all of your future cases. So then here it will be not P class but H6. And here it will be heading 2 as always, then paragraph, and maybe it will be in the middle of the screen here. And this will be your second section on the web page. I'm showing it to you and explaining all these different things in details, of course, I could go, I could go with like how to create a typography style guide for web. Boom, go use this plugin. Now you see the styles, change the name, done. But in my opinion, then it wouldn't be the course that I created, because I always dive really deep so you understand the logic from the very beginning, where it starts from. So in the future, you can explain it to other developers, so you can explain it to other designers, to your colleagues, to managers, to stakeholders, to clients if needed, or you can do it even yourself. But you know everything from the ground up, from the surface level. You dive deeper and you understand the foundation of everything. It's not just the surface level information that you get from social media, from really basic courses for junior or even beginners who have never had any experience. No, this course is different. I want this course to be actually from like 0 to hero level, on an advanced level, so you understand like everything. That's why I explain it to you. You can always write an email to us and say like, you know what, we just need the surface level information. I don't need to dive so deep. Just give me the surface level information, how to do this, and that's it. Just done. I don't want to understand design. I just want to do it. And that's it. Just let us know. But I want to show you these different types that you can use and become really efficient and like the best designer, design legend. That's at least my focus. If you have other goals, if you just want to learn some like how to use Figma, take a look at other courses probably, because here we're talking about more advanced techniques. How to use Figma plus why to do it this way, how to apply it and everything. Okay, so we created our styles here. These are not styles yet. In order to create styles, we are selecting the element, go here, text, plus, type in heading 1, done. Then we create a new one, heading 2. If you watch the first module, you know exactly how to do that, and you know that you can do it even not from here, but from styles themselves. But here I'm creating it because I already have them here. I can do it easily. It's not necessary that you're typing heading 6 specifically, right? You can type H6. So it can be easier for you to find it later here. So you don't have to read. You don't need to overwhelm yourself when you're working with styles that you created. But when you're creating it, let's imagine for developers, when you're creating it for other designers, so maybe they think in a little bit different way. So it's better to talk to them what will be the best way for them, because design is always collaboration. It's collaboration between project managers, QA specialists, developers, other designers. It's always collaboration. So think about other people as well. You are, as a UX UI designer, as a product designer, as a design legend, you don't have to think only about yourself if you're working with other people. And I'm talking not only about thinking about users, but thinking about users of your designs. If there is someone else who will be using your design, they're also users. Not of the product that you're designing, but of your designs. Think about their user experience and make it perfect as well, or at least close to perfect. So we created these first styles, then lead paragraph. We type it lead paragraph, something like that. But also you can type something like where to use it, what's it for, and here it's like a comment section where you can type use it as a first paragraph, but only in the blog. That's it. So basically you will not use lead paragraph anywhere, but only on the blog where you have heading, then you have lots of text, lots of different paragraphs, but you want to highlight that in the very first paragraph, the most important information will be revealed in the very first paragraph. It will set the tone, and that's why you want to highlight somehow this paragraph. And for these purposes, you are using lead paragraph style. You can open properties, change it to, if you need to make any changes, and that's it. Create style. Now you have lead paragraph style. And of course, we have a paragraph style that can be just P. Create style. Links. By the way, for the links, you are thinking, well, we need to change it somehow, so let's make them blue from the very beginning so we understand that this link. It doesn't mean that the link should be blue, but let's go from typography perspective. Let's not talk about colors yet because we will apply colors later in the next lesson. Here, let's talk about the link from typography perspective. How we see links usually, they are underlined. So the link will be underlined. You can also create the styles. You can see, like, if you have the style for price and you have the style for discounted price, then you can go here, and for the discounted price, like for the actual price, because you have a discounted one, you can set the strike price. You define the name for that. So later, when you show the price that the product costs like $97, the first price was $4.97, let's imagine. And for this style, it will be bold. And this one is even a little bit smaller because the smaller size, the smaller price should be from marketing perspective, from psychology perspective, smaller price should also look smaller if you want to highlight it. If you want to show that that's actually, there is a difference in prices. So $4.97 looks really huge. It's like, oh my God, 97 looks really small in relationship to the first original price. So you can create these styles as well, like strike price and everything. It depends on the product that you are creating. Later, when you will start creating some sections of the website, it will be much faster later, I promise you, because we are preparing everything. The preparation takes time. And once you prepare typography style guide, color style guide, layout style guide, and also effect style guide, you can use them in all of the websites that you will be creating in future. You don't need to create them again. You will just need to edit them and to update them according to a particular project that you are designing. But the preparation stage is the most important. Yes, it takes time. But it takes time, more time, only because later it saves us so much time. And that's why these first lessons are a little bit like longer than you might think. Okay, done. Now we know all the styles, we know how to add them here. Got it. Let me show you another way how to do that, how to create a typography style guide now, I would call it exactly, semi-automatic method. Why semi-automatic method? Because part of it will be automatic and the rest of it will be manual again. In order to do that, you define what's the base size will be for the paragraph that will be used in your designs. And here, let's imagine that we already decided that the size of paragraph will be 18. Now we'll need to run a plugin called Typescale. Command P, Typescale. How to install plugins, you also know from the first module. I'm not going to explain it here. Add the Typescales plugin and run it. You will see something like this. Looks amazing, perfect, and you see different sizes, and on the right side you see the options to change that. So the base size is 18. That's exactly what we defined. You can make it smaller, bigger right here. but if you already defined that the base size will be 18, go with 18. The next thing is scale. What is scale? Scale is exactly, it's like a multiplier for all the next styles, sizes of this particular font that you define as a base size. So the base size is 18. The next one, let's imagine that we will use 125. Okay, let's use 125. If you multiply 18 by 125, then it will be 18 plus 18 divided by 4, right? So it's like 6. Where is that? Let me do one thing. Run it. So it will be here 4.5. So when you divide 18 by 4, it will be 4.5. And because of that, the next size will be 22.5. 18 multiply 125. The next size will be 22.5 multiply 125. The next one, so you take the previous size and multiply it by 125 by the scale that you chose. And now let's make it rounded values again. The bigger the scale that you choose, the higher the ratio, the bigger the final typeface will be. And here, what's important to understand, the type scale that you're gonna choose, that you need to choose for your website, depends on the website that you are building. For e-commerce websites, I recommend you to go with major second up to major third. For like SaaS companies, for landing pages, I recommend you to go with major third up to perfect fourth. And you use augmented fourth and golden ratio only in the cases when you're designing like blogs, or when you're designing like about me page, or you want to create a portfolio that looks really bold, because you will be creating really huge styles. So in this case, let's go with something that is basically kind of somewhere in between that we can apply for absolutely anything. And in this case, half of the golden ratio could be the case, but I would go probably with major third. It will cover absolutely all the needs that we will need. And later, if we'll need to change something, we'll do that. You know what? Honestly, we'll go with half golden ratio because I just realized that we will be able to cover more topics with the golden ratio, half of the golden ratio, rather than with any other style. Okay, now then, line height. What is line height? You already know, okay? But here you can define it. You can change it to whatever you want. Honestly, later, you can set here anything. I recommend you to set 1. It will be much easier for you to make changes later. Just set 1, because later we will have to update for absolutely every single element. We'll have to update it manually. Scales. How many scales? What does it mean, scales? It means that so we have a paragraph. How many typefaces larger than the paragraph we want to have on our web page, and scales up and scales down. How many typefaces we want to see lower, the size that will be lower than our main paragraph. And in this case, let's go with what we have right now, 6 scales up, 2 scales down, and then you press just generate. Round values means that here, as you can see, because of the when you're multiplying 18 by this number, you can't expect that you will have rounded numbers. But you also don't want to use them in your design. So that's why it's really great feature that you have round values, and then you will be able to use round values in your designs, in your types, in your style guide. And then you press generate. Boom. And now you have the generated version of your typography style guide. It's already defined. Thank you so much to the authors of this plugin. Now you will be able to make all the changes, and because it's auto layout, it will be reflected here, and it already looks cool, and you can add it immediately once you make some changes immediately to your case study, or maybe to your typography style guide, or to any page to show like, boom, that's the, or maybe to share with your colleagues or to the client. So we defined already as a deliverable, we defined already the typography style guide for our project. Take a look at that. It looks already mind-blowing. I'm so happy to work on this website. Let's bring more profit to a company. Here, now, once everything is created, now we need to make some changes. And some of the changes that we'll have to make is to update, of course, the weight of the typefaces. We'll have to update also the line height. In this case, we will use for H1 1.1, for H2. By the way, let's call them immediately heading 1. Also for the heading 1, we will reduce the letter spacing. Here -7%, it's too much, -6. The next one we will use here for the heading 2. As you can see, like all the sizes here, they look so consistent. Like the manual version that I created, it looks consistent, but at the same time, like when I change the H6, it's not so kind of perfect. Of course, if I change it to paragraph, everything will become paragraph. It will be perfect match here, perfect style and everything. But then, you know, like to add it to auto layout, to make some changes in this auto layout, and also to bring the actual sizes, you don't have to do it anymore manually. Everything is created for you already. You can use it immediately. Some additional things that you can use the base value, yeah, like that, scale, okay. But here you can also add additional element, and let's call it desktop, because it will be the desktop version. And then you make the changes that you want to make. Heading 4, heading 5, heading 6, then paragraph, then caption, and then footnote. Done. Also check that your footnote, the smallest one, is not smaller because it creates everything automatically, and it can be 8, 6 size, so that's why you don't want to have those sizes. So that's why keep it in mind that to check the smallest one. The next thing, once you created this, you of course like think, okay, but what about links? What about bold paragraphs? What about bold text in the paragraph? What about like all these different things? So now you can create an additional style here, like bold text. It will be exactly the same as a paragraph, but semi-bold, for example. The next thing, you want to have links, and we will bring it down here, so it will be link. The same style as a paragraph, but the only thing that we decided, let's imagine, to do is to make it underlined here. Then caption, note, like everything okay, and maybe we'll create also Command D. We'll create here the button, and it will be, let's imagine, 16. No, the button will be exactly the same size. We already decided it. Button. But we just decided that the button will be semi-bold or medium. Let's go with medium one. So basically, it's much faster version to create a typography style guide than before. And this is what you can use to create your typography style guide. It's much easier, much faster. Then you'll just have to make some adjustments that we did. And that's it. Desktop. Desktop typography style guide. And that's it. You just created an incredible typography styles that represents the visual hierarchy that will be used in your designs. But because we have to remember about the mobile version as well, and for mobile version to have a heading like this, heading 1, let's imagine that you have 375 by 812 design, and then this will be your heading: how to create a perfect typography style guide. $3.45. We define that it's 110. No. As you can see, by the way, when we'll start applying the typography style guide that we created here, you can see that, honestly, I would update here the line height. I would update here, I would change here the letter spacing. So you go to your typography style guide, make the changes, and then you see in reality how it works. So it's totally fine. But look, let's imagine that you're designing the mobile version of the website, and you decided not to change anything in the typography for the mobile version. This is the heading that you will see. And I assume that that's not exactly what you want to see, right? Probably not. You want to see something at least like max like this. Already looks perfect. And then you will use the paragraph here. And now everything like, that's exactly what we want to achieve. But how to do that? Well, during the exploration stage, you also define what the size will be for some of the elements for the mobile version. And the most important is to define the sizes for the H1, H2, H3, and the paragraph. That's it. And then once you define like, okay, 60, somewhere around 60, this is exactly the size that I want to get for my heading 1 for the mobile version. And in order to do that, what we do here, we create another version. We type paragraph here, but regular 16, letter spacing 0. And now we run the plugin again, type scales. And now our goal to have the same 6 scales up, 2 scales down, but our goal to have H1 somewhere around 60. And if you're gonna go, as you can see, what I did also here. In the web version, for the paragraph, we have the size of the paragraph 16 pixels. But for the mobile version, it's a smaller screen. I decided to go with a smaller one because it's mobile, so it's 16. Because if I use 18, then we have 69. And maybe it's too much for us. Another way what you can do, of course, you can change the scale type. You can change it to -1/3, for example, and boom, now it's close to that. So just define the very first thing to define what the size you wanna have as a base size for the paragraph. Always start everything, all your designs, all your websites, all your web pages. When it comes to typography, always start them from the size of the paragraph. Because the size of the paragraph will define the sizes of all other elements. It will define the line height of all the elements. It will define the baseline for the layout. And it will define so many other different things. So the first thing to define is the baseline, base size of the main paragraph. And here I decided to go with a base size 16. but for the base size 16, for the H1, I will have only 48. In some cases, it will be perfect. It will be exactly what I need. But I want to go with something larger because I want a higher contrast. I want to, the website that I'm building is something like, you know, it attracts attention. It looks bold. It looks incredible. It looks attractive, catchy, if you will. So that's why I decided to go with this scale. Press generate, delete the basic one, and now this will be our mobile typography style guide, or typography style guide mobile. It depends on what you want to call it here, and here mobile. You can create the same for tablet, and for the tablet it will be just a little bit different version. You can go with 8 minus 5. For the mobile version, for the tablet version, it will be similar. Like everything will be the same, almost the same as for the desktop one, but for the paragraph, the same for the paragraph. For the paragraph, it will be 18, but the scale that you will choose, you can choose the scale a little bit smaller. So let's do that. Let me show it to you so you will not be confused. So we run it here, 18, but the scale we use, we can use, instead of golden ratio half of the golden ratio that we used for the desktop, we'll use major third for our tablet version. And then we take it here, put it down, and do the same stuff. I'm not going to cover it here because it will take too much time. And you know that today the most important to create the mobile version, and in most of the cases, if analytics shows that most of the people use tablet version, of course we will focus on the tablet version first. But today, as you can see in the analytics, you will see that most of the people, like about from 60 to 80%, are using mobile version of the websites. And then the rest, like 20-40%, using the desktop version of the website. So that's why that's exactly what we are focusing on the most. And here it will be heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, heading 6. Then paragraph, bold text. So basically you're creating absolutely the same styles that you have for the desktop version, but for the mobile one. And it's important. It's important to create all these things. Figma hasn't added the typography to their variables yet. I assume that they will add it later. But as for now, we will just use styles, all the styles that we created. The only thing, again, that we have to keep in mind, when we are creating the typography style guide, when we're creating typography styles, type styles, how to define like which one will be H1 for the mobile, which one will be H1 for the desktop. In this case, we will use here just different naming. So I click edit style, and here I will use desktop /H1. Then I copy desktop from here, Command C, close. And this is what we do for absolutely every single style that we just created. We add desktop / and the name. For absolutely every single element. Because we created them for the desktop version. And now, as you can see, we have text styles and we have desktop. We can choose from desktop. And now we will create the same, but for the mobile. Create mobile /H1. Select the second one. Create mobile H2. Just keep in mind that it's really the case of the letters is also really important, because if, for example, I create for the heading 3, the style will be mobile H3, create. So now we have the first folder desktop, the second one mobile, where mobile starts with a large M, the uppercase M, and the last one will be the third version, also mobile, but because the first letter is lowercase, now it's a new folder for the styles. So that's why we want to change it, and here we'll use mobile /H3. Or, as you can see, it created in this style. We'll just grab and move it up. This is what you need to understand when you're creating styles, that you can do all these changes here. And now, when you're creating your actual design here, what you can do is just click Style, Desktop H2. You click here, we don't have eyebrow, let's go with, let's imagine lead paragraph here. Boom, done. Here we have a paragraph, we select paragraph. Here we have buttons. We haven't created the style for the buttons yet, but you got the idea. But for the mobile version of the same element, elements here, I don't need wrap, I need stack. Exactly. And now the same element, 375, 812, this section, we'll bring it here. All the elements inside will be fill container, just for these purposes, because we are working on typography right now, not on the buttons and everything. Just so it looks better. Now what we do, we select the elements here and we choose not the desktop H2, but the mobile H2. And this is what we will have here. And for the paragraph, we also select the mobile paragraph. Let's create one. Select here, instead of desktop, mobile. And here we'll use, we'll need to have, like everything should match exactly for the desktop version, should match exactly the same semantic element on the mobile version. The only thing that can be different is the style of it. And later, what's really cool, here what we can do for the H2, we can go and click and edit, and for the edit what we will do, we will change the line height, we'll make it smaller, like 90 for example. By the way, let's take a look what's happening here. Mobile H2, we're also changing the letter spacing, -3%, perfect. And also, instead of using semi-bold, we're going to use bold. But also, as I can see, 90 is not the perfect idea. Let's go with 100 still. And let's check. Like nothing else to change here. We changed already text. We keep size the same, 49, because it's already defined here as 49. So otherwise, if we'll change the size, keep in mind that you will also need to change the size here, the number here, and you will also need to calculate how much it will be in RAM, because let's imagine that you change the style here to something smaller, like 240, but here it will be 49. Developer will take a look, okay, we're using 49, and they will use 49 if you are creating the styles from the typography style guide that you created, not from the designs, from the actual designs. This is where you will see mismatch. So that's why keep it in mind. Keep in mind all these details. Let's create, by the way, the final thing that I really don't like here is that we don't have. Let's create another one, and let's call it eyebrow. And for the eyebrow, the same style, but uppercase. Done. Semi-bold, -2%, or maybe instead 5%. Perfect. And now we add this style to desktop. By the way, another version to do that is eyebrow. Select, click outside, eyebrow, bring into desktop, and boom. And if you created the styles not in one particular order, like let's imagine that you created H3 before H1, it was something like that. Oh, it jumps automatically. Wow, I've never seen that before, but not for everything. So let's imagine that you created it this way. So in this case, you just grab the style and bring it down to the order that will work the best for you. So now when we have the eyebrow style, we can go here and apply the actual style that we need. Eyebrow, and here I will use the desktop version, but it should be mobile as well. And for the mobile here, at least, we know that we used 16. And this is how you create these styles. This is how you work with them. And this is exactly what the style guide is. You create something like this. You also check that everything is seen, so you make the adjustments because details are important. When people see something is not perfect, they're like, well, I don't know if you can trust to all other things that you're creating. They will start second guessing, and you don't want this second guessing here when you're designing something. So my recommendation to you is just keep in mind that these small details, and then this is your mobile version, this is your desktop version of the same for the same website, for the typography style guide. And basically what is the typography style guide? Is the style guide that includes all the typefaces that you have for your website. For the website, you can also add additional version here. Remember, like a tablet, you can even name it, not rulers, typography style guide, and the name of the project. If you want to, you can make it look a little bit, add styles here. Here it will be for the project name, so you know exactly what's happening. And here it will be not the mobile but tablet. Done. And that's it. That's basically it. The only thing to keep in mind, just a recommendation for you if you want to be, if you're working in a company, or if you have lots of your time, or if you're designing it not only for yourself, but you're designing it for like other designers will see that, or you're designing, you're creating the typography style guide, and you know that business analyst, or there is a person like copywriter, maybe UX writer in your company who is doing all the documentation, and they will need to understand like, okay, we'll use this typography style guide for our website, but where exactly we will use what. And in this case, don't forget about this thing that you can create the description for the element and eyebrow used as a style class, HTML class, HTML/CSS, because we'll call the class in HTML, and in CSS we'll define the style of this class, used as a style HTML CSS for the overline. The text above H2, H3, you name it, just like where exactly it will be used for defining the meaning of the section. Something like that. Something that other people will understand as well. So this is not the perfect description, but and the course is not for that. But I wanted to show it to you as well, that if you're working with other people who will be creating the documentation and you know exactly where to use this design element that you created, it's better to explain to them what is the logic behind it using the description. So later when they will go to this element, they will know exactly, for example, they will go and see the description of it and they will understand where to use it. So it will be reflected in the documentation, it will be reflected in the design system that will include the typography style guide that you created. And it will be just clear for developers where to use the eyebrow, and they will understand that it's not only for the as a class of the paragraph, but it also can be class of the H1 and can be also class of the H6, for example, and that's it. So semantically it will be one element, but stylistically, visually, it will be a different element. And that's basically it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. It was really like pretty long one, but I hope that today now you understand all the specifics, you understand all the details of the typography style guide, and we are ready to go to the next one. We'll create the color style guides. It will be much easier, it will be much faster. So yeah, that lesson was important, so that's why it's a little bit longer. Now go and create your own typography style guide. You can follow exactly the elements that we have here, because everything that we will create in the future, in the lessons, we will use these styles. Some of them will adapt, some of them will change, some of them will add, remove, but we will use these elements. So go and create your own typography style guide, and I'll see you in the next lesson.